Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Goofy Rexy here. I hope you guys are doing well today. So today we're doing another character review installment. Today's character review is going to be on Carnage. Carnage is perhaps one of the most fun characters to use and to play with in this game. He's an excellent kit and great synergy with the symbiotes, and of course, mainly, Symbiote Spider-Man. So today we're going to talk about, first and foremost, how do you unlock Carnage? We're going to go through a kit review and the best way to use his attacks so that you can get obviously the best utilization out of him. We're also going to go through recommended T4s. We're going to talk about team synergies and then, of course, the best game modes that you can use Carnage in to maximize his abilities. All right, guys, so thank you so much for being here. Sit back and let's get right on into the video. Alright guys, so we're going to get right into the video. I have Carnage right up here, but first and foremost, if you are new to the channel and would like to get more videos like this or helpful information related to Marvel Strike Force, please consider hitting that subscribe button right down there in the corner. Also, I do stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I also do a noon stream too as well on Friday, so you can also catch me there. The link is down below, and then I also do have some other links below too as well. The link to my Discord page, so you can hop in there, on my Twitter page and my Facebook page too as well, so you can always connect with me, outside of YouTube too. All right guys, so let's talk about Carnage. All right guys, so with Carnage, let's start off with the basics right here. So first and foremost, how do you get Carnage? So you can get Carnage in the War Store. So actually for me right now, he's actually showing up for me. He is actually a cost of $13.75 in the War Store. Obviously you get War Store credits by competing in war. Each war you get, a certain amount of credits. So you can kind of do the math and figure out how much you need in order to be able to get him unlocked. He's 100 shard unlock. And then of course, the progression from there to be able to get him at higher stars. You can also find him in, some other areas too. These are going to be in orbs. So obviously these are going to be very RNG based. Actually, in reality, the War Store is pretty RNG based too. He's not going to always show up in the War Store. There are going to be times where he doesn't show up there. So, save your credits, try to go ahead and farm him. He's a really good character, but you can also find him in these orbs too, the premium orb, the milestone orb, as well as the mega orb too. All right, so the next thing on the docket here is we're actually going to be going through a kit review for Carnage. But I do want to mention this first and foremost. So Carnage, from a base stats perspective, doesn't do a lot of damage, just if you're looking at just the base stats. But Carnage does, because of his kit and the debuffs that he does apply, that's really what makes him such a valuable character and the reason why he's actually the primary damage dealer for that symbiote team. So when we take a look first at his basic attack right here, his basic attack does 230% damage to the primary target. But what you want to do to get the best utilization out of this attack is that you want to actually attack a target that already has negative effects on them. When we think about the team that he primarily functions with, the symbiotes, with Symbiote Spiderman and with Venom, that is a team that does do a lot of debuffs. Symbiote Spider-Man does defense downs as well as stuns, and then he also applies bleeds. Venom does ability block. He also does bleeds too as well, and then Venom himself also does spread negative effects too. But we're talking about Carnage here. When he attacks a primary target that already has negative effects on him, he is then going to be able to chain up to an additional 1 or 2 targets, and he's going to spread at least 2 negative effects to those additional targets. So you really want to time this attack up, and if you can, right, obviously sometimes you're gonna have to attack a tank or whatever because they're taunting, but if you can line this attack up the right way and then make sure that you're using it, that you're targeting a target that already has a negative effect on them, just so you can spread it to those adjacent targets, that would be the best way to utilize this ability. So the next attack that we're going to talk about here is his special ability called Slaughter. So Slaughter, he attacks the primary target for 350% damage, which once again, because he's not a high damage dealing character, as we saw with his base stats before, it's not necessarily big damage, but it's significant because it's 350%. It's just not the best, you know, but the real key additional aspect here is that he does 100% plus 100% additional damage per negative effect on the target that he is hitting. So once again, when we think about this attack, it kind of reminds me of Graviton that does additional damage based on negative effects on him. Carnage, this attack does it in a similar way, which is why I think this is actually his best attack that he does have, or his best ability that he has, you know, because, you know, he is going to do additional damage based on those additional negative effects. Once again, when you're using him with Venom, you're using him with Symbiote Spiderman, you know, and Carnage himself, who spreads a lot of negative effects, this attack could do some really significant damage. You know, when you're thinking about it, this just the additional portion of this where he's doing additional damage because of negative effects, you know, if you're in a situation where there's 5, 6, or 7, you know, negative effects on a particular, you know, target, he is going to he's going to do an extra, what, 400 to 500, you know, additional damage. So once again, you want to make sure that you're not wasting this attack and that you use it at the right appropriate times when that target does have multiple negative effects on them, you know. And then the key thing to mention here, it also does remove all those negative effects from the primary target. So you do want to make sure that the target that does have those negative effects on them, that they may be relatively low, or that you can at least take them down to being low too as well. You might want to avoid, you know, targets that have defense up on them. It's not going to do as well, you know. So you want to think about things like that when you're using this attack, and utilize it in the right way and in a smart way to get the best, once again, utilization out of this move. All right, now with his ultimate attack, this is called Absolute Carnage, which it really is kind of bananas. You know, he attacks the primary target for 420% piercing damage, and then he also applies 2 bleed for 2 turns. So this attack I really like because he does this right off the bat. This is his first attack that he's going to do when he enters into a match. So I actually really do like this. The other portion that's worth mentioning too, as well, as we look at the 420% piercing damage. Piercing damage is better than just doing regular damage because piercing damage actually bypasses armor. So you'll see, you know, certain tools that have an armor of 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 or whatever their armor might be. You know, this attack is going to ignore that. Typically, when you do damage, let's say that in total, one attack does a damage of 30,000, and then someone has, you know, armor up to 2,000 or 4,000 or 8,000, whatever, you know, essentially, if you're doing 30,000 damage, if the person's armor is 8,000, then you're only really going to be doing 22,000, you know, hit points of damage. So with piercing, it ignores armor. So that 420% is his biggest attack, you know, in terms of, you know, like I said, just the percentage of it, even though the special can do a little bit more, you know, this ultimate attack is going to do more just because of that piercing. And then he also applies, like I said, those 2 bleeds for 2 turns. Why I want to mention that is because if the primary target is above 50% health, then he'll also apply an additional bleed. So he's going to apply 3 bleeds if they're over 50% for 2 turns. Once again, when you think about this attack, he gets its attack right off the bat. So if he's getting this attack right off the bat, majority of the time the target is going to be above 50% health, and then for the most part, you're always going to, most of the time, you're going to be applying 3 bleeds to that character for 2 turns, and we know that bleeds are really something that really does a lot of damage to different characters. So once again, this is in my opinion, I wouldn't say, you know, his best attack, but a really, really good attack, just because you can start off with this by using Absolute Carnage. right? So his last ability here, which is Frenzied Fury, which is his passive ability. So this is not an actual attack, it's just a passive ability. When an enemy drops below 25% health, he'll fill the speed bar by 30%. So I actually have this ability T4'd. Prior to this, I believe that it's at 20% for self and all symbiote allies. It will fill the speed bar by 20% prior to this being a T4. And then of course, you know, healing for 10% of this character's max health too as well. So this is a really good ability, and you know, I T4'd it for a reason. We'll talk about T4s, you know, actually right after this. But this is one, again, another really good ability. I always like, you know, T4ing abilities that do, you know, not just have a benefit to the character, but have a benefit to the overall, you know, team, or, you know, other adjacent, you know, individuals that are characters that work with them. So I actually do really like, you know, this ability, this attack here, or not attack, but this ability that he does have. And this is actually going to segue right on into us talking about, you know, our T4s. So to discuss T4s here, we're back to his basic ability. Once again, like I said, T4s, they really have to, they're pricey and they're rare. So you want to make sure that you're putting T4s into characters that are gonna really kind of overall, it's really, their benefit really has to be there. And also, you know, you would like for it to kind of affect, you know, not just that character, but other players on the team too as well. But, you know, there are some ones to consider, even if it is just increased damage. But in this particular area, I would not put a T4 on his basic, because when you do put a T4 on his basic, you're getting an additional 50% damage to the primary and the secondary targets. For me, the additional damage doesn't really do it for me. You know, 50% damage is not really a crazy increase from you know, in addition to, you know, the 230, as well as the, you know, 190% that you're already seeing here before. So in my personal opinion, I wouldn't put a T4 on this, just because I don't think it's really worth it to do that. It's just not effective enough for it to really be considered a T4. When we do look at his passive ability, or sorry, his special ability in Slaughter, if you do put a T4 on this, there is a plus 70% damage to the primary and secondary targets. Once again, you know, I would say 70% is a little bit better than the 50%, but once again, it's not as if though it's given the addition, it's not adding, you know, I would say to, you know, it's not adding to the damage per negative effect. If this was affecting just the additional damage per negative effect, then I would say, yeah, that's a really good T4 to add into it. But based on the fact that it's not doing that, I once again don't think this is worthy of a T4. You know, save your T4s there. When we look at his, you know, his ultimate ability here, yes, this does increase by an additional 80% piercing to the primary target. But once again, you know, this is one that you can consider. You know, plus 80% piercing is, like I said, piercing is better than doing regular damage, you know, because it does bypass the armor, and 80% is pretty good, which would make this 500. I wouldn't be upset if you did this one. I personally don't plan on doing this one, just mainly because I don't really think that it's as necessary yet. But maybe as you start to do, you know, greater content with, you know, Carnage, it might be worth it then. But once again, in my opinion, I didn't think it was worthy of a T4. But if you did, I wouldn't be upset or mad with you if you did. I could get it, you know. This last ability here, which is his passive, you know, when an enemy drops below 25%, fill the speed bar by 30%. So previously, as I said before, this was at 20%, right? So when I put a T4 on this, it actually filled the speed bar up by 10%, which is, I thought this was worthy of a T4, you know, primarily because of the areas where you do use the symbiotes. A lot of the times you're using them in raids, being able to get them to speed up, on top of the fact that they also do apply, you know, Symbiote Spiderman does apply, you know, slow to the other team, means that this team is going to go fast all the time. And with SSMs, you know, T4, on his passive as well, means that they're going to get 100% drain, so they're always going to heal themselves for the amount of damage that they also dish out. So being able to get them to go quicker is good. Sometimes they go a little bit too fast, because you would like for them to slow down just so that they can get some supportive help from the rest of the cast that you're using the symbiotes with. But in my personal opinion, this was a really good T4. Increasing that speed bar by 10% is big. Speed is very big in this game. Slows, increase, speed ups are really sometimes what can win you matches. So the additional speed, in my opinion, was definitely well worth it, and this is a recommended T4. And like I said, if T4 is ultimate ability, I would understand that too as well. Some have T4 is basic because it's an attack that he uses the most, but like I said, just because of the damage that it increases by, I wouldn't recommend that T4 on him. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna dive right into is talking about the best teams and the best game modes to use Carnage in. All right, so we've discussed at length, Carnage's abilities here, T4s. So we're gonna talk about, obviously, as I said before, just teams and best game modes that he can work in. So one of the teams that I use him with right now myself is I use him with Invisible Woman and with Minerva. My Fantastic Four team is not built up, and I wanted to find some utilization for Invisible Woman, other than outside of Arena, so I did kind of plug her into this team. With this team, the Symbiotes, Carnage, them lacking, what I would call the ability to clear debuffs off of themselves. That's one of the areas that they do lack. Invisible Woman kind of does provide the help that they need with being able to clear debuffs, so that's the reason why I have her on this team. She also does give defense ups, even though Venom does do it as well with his passive. It's not bad to have additional defense ups with this team. Carnage at times can be a little squishy. Venom's a little tanky, and Symbiote Spiderman's a little tanky, but sometimes Carnage does tend to die a little bit quicker than you want him to, so having the additional defense ups, does help. And of course, with the Invisible Woman then being able to put offense down on the other team does help, Carnage and the Symbiotes. So I thought it was a good team. And of course, Minerva is just a phenomenal plug and play character. She also, does bleeds, of course, and those things can be spread. So obviously, it's a good unit that works really well. And I've used this team to beat, multiple Asgardian teams in war, and to use them in other areas and raids too as well. The next recommended team that you could use with them, Green Goblin and Psylocke, are actually kind of a considerable team. Green Goblin does have, a passive ability, that does remove, debuffs from enemy characters if he does have other Spider-Verse characters with him. I talked about Green Goblin mainly because he's probably going to be coming off of that, that Sinister Six team with Doc Ock and Swarm and Electro kind of, taking the mantle, or taking places on that Sinister Six team. So if you want to try to find a way to, or place or an area to plug in Green Goblin can work with the Symbiotes. I mentioned Psylocke once again because she's a great utility character that can clear debuffs off of the team and then transfer them over to the other team. So I think once again really good. She also does take debuffs. She also does take positive effects off a particular target too, which can be helpful if you're trying to use a symbiote and someone else is taunting and you want to take off that taunt. Psylocke can help to take that taunt off, and then the symbiotes can go and attack whoever it is that you want them to attack. So that's one thing that I thought about with this team that I think could work really well for you. Another team is the Scientist Supreme and Graviton. They also do have a pretty good unit. Scientist Supreme, Graviton spread a lot of debuffs. So once again, Graviton has that thing in his kit where he does additional damage when a target has negative effects on them. So once again, it's just one of those things where it's like Carnage has that same thing in his repertoire. So kind of having both of them as just these big damage dealers doing that on on the other side, on the other team, you know, could be really helpful for your unit. I've heard people use this team in U7, and it does really well in U7 too, as well, as long as you have them built up adequately enough. But this is once again a super bleed team, a super heavy debuff team, a super damage team that will really work for you. And Scientist Supreme, you know, she clears debuffs too as well, so she can keep those debuffs off the symbiotes while they go on ahead and attack. The other team that you can think about is, you know, characters like Hela, Pyro, you know, teaming them up. Once again, just bleeds, and, you know, Hela spreading debuffs, just things like that. And of course, last but not least, you know, Miles and Spider-Man Miles and Spider-Man, regular Spider-Man. You know, if you don't have a Young Avengers team to put Miles on, you know, you can always slate them with them too as well. Miles and Spider-Man do get some healing, you know, being a part of the symbiote, you know, being part of the team with the symbiotes too. So, you know, it's another area, another team that you can use them with as well. Now, the best game modes, you'll probably already know this already, but there's definitely raids. Because of Symbiote Spider-Man's passive, the symbiotes do get 100% drain, meaning that whatever damage that they do, if they do 20,000 damage, they're gonna get healed by 20,000. So, you know, it's phenomenal, you know, team that you can use in raids. Or a self-sustaining team, kind of a selfish team at times, because they can leave their other team members, you know, out to stray with the symbiotes, you know, kind of just always getting those drains. But, you know, it's really good, obviously. And also Dark Dimension is another really good area where you can use this entire team also. So, you know, consider that. You know, I know that right now I'm building up my Carnage, I'm building up my Symbiote Spider-Man to go into Dark Dimension 3, you know, and eventually I'll probably be building up my Venom, you know, to be able to go into Dark Dimension 3 too as well. Those damn, you know, molecular scans and marrow extract are kind of killing me. But listen, that's a team that I'm definitely planning on bringing into, you know, Dark Dimension 3. So, you know, Dark Dimension raids, the symbiotes are really good there. You know, Carnage and the other symbiotes are also very good, you know, against the Asgardians, you know, can really work against them in war. I've used them also as well to beat Asgardian teams in arena. They're working really, really well. I mean, listen, Carnage and the symbiotes, they work across, you know, multiple areas in the game. They're high usage characters. You're not gonna feel or go wrong by investing into Carnage, Venom, or Symbiote Spider-Man. They're always gonna be, you know, there's always going to be a place for them to be used, especially in raids and in Dark Dimension. So listen, this is my kind of quick rundown. Well, not so quick, but my rundown on Carnage. You know, I hope I was able to be as detailed as possible for you guys. You know, obviously, if you have any additional questions or about anything, you can always leave a comment, you know, down below here. You can always catch me, you know, on my Discord. You know, my Discord link is down below. And of course, remember that I do stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you have additional questions that you want to ask me live, go ask me those questions live there too as well. You know, so would love to hear from you. Question of the day: where do you use Carnage? You know, do you have him yet? You know, what other team, you know, combinations do you find that you use Carnage with that is really effective? I'm curious to hear about that too as well. And then a bonus question: what's the next character that you guys like to see me do a review on? Like I said, I'm trying to make sure that I touch, you know, on all the good characters in the game, and even some sleeper tunes. So let me know, guys, what other characters you would like for me to review. And of course, if you guys have not done so already, you like this video, you want to also see some other videos that I have on the page, please make sure that you are consider hitting that subscribe button for me, guys. But until next time, be blessed and be safe.